Hello, this is YJ88323, New Orleans.
Hester, we have a report of trouble in the 4th Ward, the 1st Precinct. The report is that they have 2 machines. One machine has been shut down, and voters are turning away. Would you proceed to that area and check out the trouble and then call the mechanic at the warehouse and report the trouble to him?
Okay, I'm on my way.
So far, most of the trouble here has been voting machine breakdowns, which slow up the voting. Republicans say the local election officials aren't equipped to spot breakdowns fast enough, and their communications network is a public service. The Metropolitan Director of the Goldwater Committee says all voters, both Republican and Democratic, benefit by Operation Eagle Eye. But Democrats say it is merely a form of voter intimidation and should be called Operation Evil Eye. This is CBS News correspondent Lou Wood in New Orleans.
The Democrats have challenged this Republican operation in a number of places today. In Miami, a circuit court judge issued an injunction against Citizens for Goldwater, banning illegal mass vote challenging without cause. And bitter charges that Negroes were being prevented from voting by Republicans came from Maryland and South Carolina. There were various other complaints from both sides in Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Benton, Kentucky, all a result of the Vote Watchers' work and the work of the Vote Watchers' watchers. In Mississippi today, the largely Negro Freedom Democratic Party announced the results of its mock election, the election designed to prove that the small number of Negro voters in that state is the product of intimidation and not apathy. The result, 59,663 votes for Johnson and 14 votes for Goldwater. Walter Cronkite will be back with you from our CBS News election headquarters in a moment.
Watch this acid test, a dramatization of how the magnetic film in Prestone antifreeze gives extra protection to metals. We cover one metal foil with magnetic film. We dip the other in antifreeze having only regular inhibitors. Acid on each, hundreds of times stronger than any that could form in your car. Watch. In just seconds, one metal destroyed, and after the same time, the other still looks like new. Get Prestone antifreeze today.
You work with music free from care when your radio plays with
power to spare, ever-ready batteries with power to spare. Yes, a radio's good company, it travels anywhere. Plays with lasting power when you give it power to spare, ever-ready batteries with power to spare.
Unknown brands just aren't the same. Get ever-ready batteries with power to spare. Products of Union Carbide.
Back at our CBS News election headquarters, with 2% of the popular vote counted, Lyndon Johnson 747,000, Barry Goldwater 497,000. That's 60% of the votes so far for Johnson, 40% for Goldwater. And our VPA IBM analysis has indicated that Johnson has won the state of Kentucky with its 9 electoral votes, and is the probable winner in Indiana with 13 electoral votes. Of course, the story of Election Day isn't the story just of figures posted here on our CBS board, but it's the story of people. 71 million of us going to the polls in all sorts of weather, basically good weather today. And let's find out about some of those people in a couple of sample precincts. For first, let's go to Nelson Benton at the Anderson Park Recreation Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Nelson?
Well, this is Precinct 7A in Atlanta, a precinct of just over 5,000 people. Most all of the voters in 7A are Negroes. And there's been a steady line through here all day. So far, more than 80% of this precinct, over 4,000 people registered, have cast their ballots. Registration in this precinct is up 65% from 4 years ago. It's been this sort of picture throughout the South. Reports from Carolinas, from Texas, from Arkansas, from Florida indicate that Negroes are going to the polls today in unprecedented numbers. In some southern states, there have been challenges of Negro voters. This precinct voted Republican 4 years ago. It voted Republican 8 years ago. Today, the experts expect this precinct, the experts expect most Negroes to vote Democratic. We'll know that story from here in a little while. Another question in today's election is the question of white backlash voting. For a report on that, here's Hughes Rudd at a polling place in Chicago.
Nelson, this is Precinct 14 of the 18th Ward on the southwest side of Chicago, and the voting has been very heavy all day long. The total registration here is 563, and about 2 minutes ago, they already had 554 votes cast, running over 96%. It's been almost that high throughout the city of Chicago so far. I was talking to one of the local candidates a moment ago, and he said that a large turnout like that doesn't necessarily favor the Democrats in this neighborhood. The reason being that most of these people have moved here in the last 5 to 10 years, and according to the local candidate, he said in the old neighborhoods they were all renting their homes, but out here 90 to 95% of them own their own homes and pay taxes. And he said that's the way you make an instant Republican. You make a taxpayer out of him. So that man who was a Democrat is not too hopeful right now. This is CBS News correspondent Hughes Rudd in Chicago.
Back here at our CBS News election headquarters, a few more figures have been added up on our popular vote tally. 2% of the vote counted. Johnson 768,000 and Goldwater 511,000. Johnson has about 60% of the vote tabulated so far, and Goldwater some 40%. We at CBS News, through our vote profile analysis, and have given, we would find the indication from vote profile analysis that Kentucky and Indiana will go to Lyndon Johnson. That is a total of 22 electoral votes for Johnson. Indiana, Johnson 83,000 to Goldwater 68,000 with 7% of the vote counted. But it is our sample precincts that tell us through vote profile analysis that Johnson has won Indiana. 55 to 45%, the probable final tally. In Kentucky, a similar story can be told. I'll be back with more election news in a moment.
When you have a husband like mine, you have to make a lot of coffee.
Drink it all the time.
Even backstage at the theater.
I couldn't go on without it, but the best coffee I get is right here at home. Lauren makes it.
A special way. I'll show you. I make it by the pot with instant Maxwell House. The only one I found rich enough to make a really good pot of coffee. With this recipe, a teaspoon per cup, then water, cold water. Heat just to a boil. Then let it steep a while to bring out all its flavor. Take it from me, girls. The way to a man's heart is good coffee.
Well, it's a good start.
Try it.
Instant Maxwell House. Now so much richer in flavor you can make it by the pot.
As we're reporting to you a short while ago, the first two states that our vote profile analysis has indicated can be placed in a won or lost column have now been recorded on our CBS scoreboard here. Indiana and Kentucky, with a total of 22 electoral votes going to Lyndon Baines Johnson. Certainly the president, seeking his first term in the White House in his own right, has jumped into a very early lead on this election day. He's taken a Republican state that Senator Goldwater had said he needed, Indiana, and he's won a border state that Senator Goldwater had high hopes in, Kentucky. Of course, it takes 270 electoral votes to win this contest, and there are a lot of states where they're still voting at this very hour, and a lot of returns to be posted up there before we can say who is the winner on this election night. Let's go to the presidential desk here at our CBS News election headquarters and get some more details on those races that we have now been able to declare.
Walter, in Indiana, where President Johnson is the indicated winner, the popular vote now shows him with 83,000 votes to 68,000 for Senator Goldwater, with about 7% of the vote reporting. Earlier, Senator Goldwater was in the lead, but even then, our VPA precincts, which were from all over the state, indicated that President Johnson would win. Now it appears that his final percentage will be about 55% to Senator Goldwater's 45%, which just exactly reverses what happened 4 years ago. Nixon took Indiana by 55 to 45. President Johnson seems to be running well all over the state. He's doing very well in Indianapolis. He's doing well in the Gary and industrial areas where there was some thought that there might be a white backlash, particularly after George Wallace did well there last spring. He's doing very well in the normally Republican upper and middle income areas, and he's running strongly in the suburbs. And he's running stronger than John Kennedy among the Catholics. It looks like a sweep for him in Indiana. Roger?
Now, Harry, in the South, the president, according to VPA, already has won in Kentucky, which is a good key state for the upper South, the border South. But if we can take a quick look at South Carolina, which would furnish us a key for the deep South, you'll see that Lyndon Johnson and Barry Goldwater are very close. Goldwater in the lead by 11,888, Johnson 11,413. Just commenting briefly on South Carolina, its well-known Democratic Senator Strom Thurmond moved over to the Republican Party in early September. We'll watch that race to see what influence Thurmond's switch had, and also whether or not Lyndon Johnson can break the expected victory of Barry Goldwater down there, because if he can block Barry Goldwater in South Carolina, in all likelihood, Goldwater's victory in the South would be much more limited than the Republican strategist had hoped for. Walter?
Gentlemen, we've had our first indication on a senatorial race. I hope we can get back to it in a moment, but right now, let's listen to this message.
Come to where the flavor is. Come to Marlboro Country.
That's my kind of gal. She goes for my kind of smoke, Marlboro. Got a filter, yet it's got some flavor to it.
You can taste the fine tobaccos in Marlboro's Richmond recipe. And Marlboro Select Trait Filter smooths the flavor.
You get a lot to like with a Marlboro filter, flavor, pack, or box.
Come to where the flavor is. Come to Marlboro Country.
Bob Trout, I know that we've had a call on the race in Indiana. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, Walter. President Johnson's apparent victory in the state of Indiana is paralleled by a victory, an apparent victory for Vance Hartke, the Democratic senator who is running for a second term. With 8% of the state having reported, Hartke has 96,000. The Republican, a conservative Republican, Russell Bontrager, has 84,000. And the CBS IBM analysis of selected districts indicate that when all the vote is in, Vance Hartke will have 56% of the vote. Hartke is apparently the winner, Walter.
Bob, that big Johnson victory in Indiana looks like it may sweep the state. Mike Wallace, how about the gubernatorial race?
Well, I just got through talking to Roger Brannigan, who's the Democratic candidate there, and as you can see, Walter, Roger Brannigan now has 101,700 on the tabulated vote, the popular vote in Indiana. Richard Ristine, 78,000 odd. But according to our VPA estimate, Brannigan is the winner with 56%. Brannigan said, "I'm very happy, and tell Walter I'm watching him."
Good. Thank you, Mike. Well, you might wonder what the big news might have been if this was not Election Day, but it is Election Day, and we'll be back in just a minute with complete coverage that ought to be of continuing interest far into the night. Long after we know who has won, we'll be finding out by how much, who he brought in with him. That's the way it's going to be, Tuesday, November 3rd, 1964. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
Direct from the CBS News election headquarters in New York, this has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. Stay tuned for CBS News coverage of Election Night 64, next on the CBS Television Network.